Alrighty people, how about we talk about how your laptop can enable you to do fun, creative things, even in applications you have only limited knowledge about, but always wanted to try. I have precisely this kind of relationship with Blender, or well, pretty much all CGI applications for that matter, and I tried time and time again to dive into it. But unfortunately, as you might all know, time is not always a freely available resource. So I would love to create our very own desktop wallpapers for our videos, for example, and leverage the modeling and creation capabilities of the open source CGI application. Ideally, without having to watch hours upon hours of tutorials about lighting or rendering techniques. Thankfully, I can do exactly that with the help of NVIDIA's AI Blueprints. And what that is, I'll tell you in a little more detail in a minute. But in a nutshell, Team Green offers pre-built workflows for all sorts of different scenarios that leverage the performance of your RTX GPU to either try out something you simply haven't done before, like the Blender workflow we will talk about today, or use the blueprints as a starting point for your very own custom projects if you are a more advanced user. Sounds cryptic and very abstract, and like another case of generative AI we see popping up all around. Well, truth to be told, I thought exactly the same, but once I wrapped my head around what I can do in this specific scenario we will talk about today and gave it a try, well, I had a ton of fun. Today's video is sponsored by NVIDIA, and since you will really need an RTX GPU and ideally a pretty beefy one at that, if what I showed you today is something you want to try yourself, please check out their selection of available laptops sporting RTX 5080s or 5090s via the link in the description below. Well, what an intro, but enough with the chit chat, let's get into it. To backtrack a little bit, and I mentioned this briefly before, there's a lot of talk everywhere how generative AI enables you to do everything better, faster and easier than ever before. But if you're not keeping track a lot, and I count myself amongst that group of users, you can easily get lost, especially considering the pace everything AI is moving right now. So what NVIDIA tried to do with their AI blueprints is give you access to pre-selected and optimized models of all sizes and across a wide field of potential applications, and then put everything together in basically pre-packaged workflows. So you can get started easily without having to do everything from scratch yourself. Again, we will deal with creating images or artworks with the help of Blender today. So you not only have a prompt to work with, but by utilizing a custom scene, you have much more granular control over what you want to put together. So basically, you rough out what kind of elements you want in your image and what size and position you want them to have, while your prompt breathes life, color and light into your scene. And being a creator myself, I feel like everything related to generative AI should be used with sensibility, since I would never want for talented artists to become obsolete. And this will definitely not be the case with what we are looking at today. Because considering that our final outcome is definitely not quite there to be used commercially, given the overall quality, as impressive as it might be already, and the randomness in everything, this workflow is definitely more something for you personally to play around and have some fun with, while exploring the capabilities of your hardware at the same time. But even if you are a professional artist, it could simply be another tool in your arsenal that you can maybe use for ideation or during the concept stage of your next project. Setting things up is also relatively straightforward if you know how to get around your PC and are not entirely new to use command prompts, for example. And even if you are, NVIDIA provides a very detailed set of instructions on a dedicated Github page for this particular workflow. And if you like what you will see in a little bit, I will leave the links below so you can try it out for yourself. I did my very own experiments on the Asus ProArt P16, powered by the RTX 5090 alongside 64 gigs of RAM. And spoiler alert, you will need all of that. Not just the 5090's computing grunt, but also its pretty sizable VRAM, and the 16 inches more than generous system memory also comes in pretty handy, which is pretty crazy, but also shows the potential of what you can do with just a laptop these days. Once you have downloaded everything, which thankfully happens in the background with just minimal input required on your end, you can open up Blender and are greeted with NVIDIA's sample scene. And just as a bit of a sanity check, by just clicking on run, the whole pre-assembled process starts with taking the rough model of the Blender scene, and with the help of ComfyUI, the FLUX image generation model by Blackforest, and the help of our 5090, we can generate our image on the right. And again, you have all the possibilities of Blender at your disposal. So if I were to move the fountain, for example, that is something which will be reflected in the generated image. Or if I rather want a different camera perspective, that is something you can easily do as well. And with the help of your prompt, you can change things like the overall art style. Or maybe you simply want this to be a sunset scene. Your creative possibilities are simply endless. But again, I did not just want to show you the sample scene, but rather something I like personally, and maybe something I could use as a wallpaper for one of our usual review videos. So I started to play around with different prompts and tweaked the scene, and at some point even brought in some additional models from Sketchfab, like this pre-assembled little oasis, which is the perfect base for what I had in mind. I then simply added a sphere in Blender, directly positioned it where I wanted it to be, and tweaked my prompt to reflect my new scene a bit more. As you can see, even just prompting the very same twice, you get quite a bit of variance, which on one hand makes it quite fascinating what you're going to get, but also makes the whole thing quite unpredictable, which can be both fun but also quite frustrating depending on what you are trying to create. But since I like the planet in the background, I simply added it to my prompt, and another sphere, hoping I would get a moon in the sky with varying degrees of success. Once you are satisfied, you can simply run the resulting image through an upscaler of your choosing, and voila, you got your custom sci-fi wallpaper. And once again, by simply changing your prompt, you can instantly change the whole look, mood and theme of your setting. And what started out as a relatively technical process turns into this fun creative playground that not only leaves you with a ton of content, but also allows you to deal with a new application, Blender in this case, and learn it in a very, let's say, playful way. But as you can also see, this is definitely not the be-all, end-all generative AI tool that will make CGI artists obsolete, since the outcome here is nowhere near the polish a real artist could achieve. And if you are interested what a proper pro in this regard can do, please check out the video we did with one of my very good friends Alex a little while back. But for me as a 3D art noob, this is the perfect opportunity to play around with Blender while also making sure I end up with usable and somewhat presentable results, all run locally on my very own laptop. And again, even if you are a professional, Gen AI can be another great tool at your disposal to speed up the ideation or concept stage so you can focus on the creative part. But that should already be it for today. If you want to try it for yourself, once again, you can find all the necessary links in the description. Not only to the Github page to download the whole blueprint, but also to NVIDIA's website, giving you a much broader overview should you be interested in different workflows altogether. If you need to pick up a laptop to run your personal wallpaper creation engine, check out a selection of NVIDIA RTX 50 series powered notebooks. And if you simply cannot get enough about tech and laptops, we have a ton of new videos on the channel as well. A big shout out to the folks from NVIDIA for sponsoring today's video, and a massive thank you to you guys for watching. My name is Alex, please leave a like and sub on your way out, and I'll see you all in the next one. Take care.